to Donttap
podcast.
Donttap podcast.
You do the process, the tape, the study, the narrative, the script.
A little bit of a downfall from a champ.
When we're looking at value on the lines.
That definitely, I think, in some of the handicappers I talked to, has influenced the gambling line.
Appreciate that. I'm sorry what I'm gonna have to do to you in this little matchup we got.
Thank you. I was just saying, enough niceties. Let's dig in.
He can pressure in the first, he can pressure in the second, and pressure in the third.
I'm Gentleman Josh Hill. I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I got you.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Ruffian Stop.
Tune in to Donttap
Podcast.
podcast.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom. Chris Duncan. What? Jesus Christ, why do I second guess myself? I was already thinking he was a decent dog. Digging into the numbers, you knew I was going to come in hot on this one. I still was comfortable with where we ended up because I still think that Vucevic has a lot more to show in the cage. But, I mean, the years of now at ATT, almost 3 years at ATT, training with the best, grappling with the best. He was already a wrestler going into Dana White Contender Series, more of a wrestle-heavy fighter, not known as the gunslinger as much. And he comes in and pretty much dominates for the most part. He pretty much owned that fight and looked like the minus, I think it was 220 favorite that not only I was looking at, but even the AI had predicted. So one thing I started doing was looking at, I want to actually take all the information online instead of me trying to search for it everywhere on Fight Metric and everywhere else and on UFC Fight Stats. I just get an AI to go in and get all the information, put it into graphs and charts for me based on my criteria. Then I use it for now my stat part of my breakdowns. But also it can formulate its own sort of breakdowns and where it's going to go with the AI. And we're going to get into, it's going to be me, you, against this AI producer I'm going to create. I'm going to create this character and have fun with it. Not just have an AI and say, here it is, AI on paper, and here's what it is. Let's have some fun with it and create a producer, create this sort of character and whatever. But I digress on that. Last week, that was one hit. Leon Edwards, no dice. We hit on the overs. We hit on, everything pretty much hit. Loughran. I mean, let's talk about that one, actually. Let's talk about that.
I will say, Cal, for the recap, that might have been the most locked in I've seen you in a very long time, where we did it more of a longer bit of an episode, but we kind of went like fight by fight. I had a couple of dogs that I like. I ended up pussying out and ended up going with Gunner by the last second. But, dude, I would give you your flowers from last week. You were pretty locked in. The reads that you had on the show were great, just jumps for the start of the week. And, man, shouts to Nathaniel Wood as well. I was very surprised by that performance. I thought it was going to be more of the wrestling. He ended up clipping him. Carlos Ulberg ended up catching for us, but ultimately that was a very boring fight. The surprise of the night for me was to Guram Gudaladze one. Man, dude, I was shook throughout the first. It looked
like a replay, man. It looked like a replay of his fight where he looked like who was it that a Dogger Pass? One of the guys was saying that basically he just looks like the years of fights and kickboxing matches has just worn on him. He just looks weathered, like a feeble old man. And I mean, he already looks like a fucking goblin, but he looks like a feeble old man in there. Yeah, it's just not good. Would I ever say that to his face? Because he looks like one of the most gangster individuals. I saw some footage of him outside of the event. I would never say it to his face. But yeah, the parlay never made it out of the gate for a lot of people.
So my favorite part of the night, well, I will say RIP, Molly Meatballs. Cal, I was pretty shook up. Not even from a betting perspective, from an actual fan perspective. I grabbed a bottle of Jameson in my hand and was just drinking consecutively for about 30 minutes, and they had to slowly take it away from me. I was shook. But shouts to Shauna Bananen. So the first 30 minutes of the card, I was down like $175, and I was shook. And they gave me a smoke break, and I was outside, and somebody goes, Shauna Banana got knocked out. And I was like, no, why the fuck are you telling me that? This is like the smoke break where I just got my ass ripped for the first two fights of the card. And they're like, no, wait, she isn't knocked out. And I run over, and she ends up hitting the arm bar. I will give Shauna Banana credit from the aspect of a lot of people shouldn't her in the MMA community, but dude, that performance was arguably probably the best one out of the prelims outside of Nathan Fletcher and Colin Lafferty fight of the fucking night. I thought Nathan Fletcher did enough in the last minute of the but it was one of those ones where it was like judge's delight. But I'm hyped up though, because this week's card is in Mexico. We're back in altitude. You're gonna hear people talk about the altitude angle of all time this week, but
we'll get into it. But 1 second before you go past my girl Pooja, I am so glad that didn't go to decision, because then I wouldn't have to go on this whole woke rant again, and I won't. But I'm glad it didn't go to decision, and I'm glad that it was proven. Although she has the big overhand and she can knock girls down and knock girls out, that was so low level dropping into that armbar. She was out. She pretty much had the elbow almost past. All she had to do was try to pull out. If she's holding onto the grip and can't quite do it, you change your angle and try to pop that arm out. She just dropped right back down into it, like almost set it up for Bannon to just put it off. And it's not taking anything away from Bannon, because it was actually a pretty solid performance in the way that she ran that side kick, and she was holding her off, teeping her off, and keeping her off at points. Well, and using a teep as well too. And then the only thing is with her, she's got to work on her entries, man, because then when she enters, she still gets hit. She just got to work on that. Just, maybe 1 or 2 slips as she's entering the pocket, something. And I think it would be a difference for her, man. I think she'd be a lot better than the way things have fallen for her. But yeah, Pooja, point proven. And we will look at the cardio. And I will get into my one post I'm going to be putting out, and I put out on Twitter. It's partly for one of my favorite guys that I always hear, and I won't even mention him on the podcast that I listen to, but he goes off about Peruvian cardio. Like it's this inbuilt thing ingrained in Peruvians, and it's not. It's grit. It's salted the earth grit, and I've talked about it in the past, but I have a little chart with a graph showing elevation in Peru and showing where 90% of the population in Peru trains, but we'll get into that later. For you, anything else you want to highlight from last week? One championship parlay. I put it up late night. I took it down again after. I'll admit it. It blew up real bad.
The Hardwick brother. Oh my God. George Hardwick minus 600 and loses a 5-round decision, dude. Not that he got knocked out, loses a 5-round decision. One of those ones should have learned off the Dana White Contender Series that with these brother relationships, there's usually one that's better than the other. Kind of similar to the Bonfim brothers the other past week. But let's get into this card, though.
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's get rolling. We will start off with round number 1.
Round 1, fight.
Okay, so for round number one, you guys know the drill. It's usually your strongest play, the play that you are feeling committed about, if you have any this early in the week. So I want you to lead it off as usual, Billy. Let's go, man. Dig into round number 1. What do you have?
Yeah, the first thing that stood out to me on the main card here was the Ronaldo Souza versus Kevin Boras fight, kind of like a prospect versus prospect showdown. We've been seeing a lot more of those in the UFC more recently, but Kevin Boras had a really good Dana White Contender Series, but both his UFC performances have been kind of somewhat underwhelming, where in the Joshua Van one, he kind of bolted to pressure late in that fight, and then Alexander Kocher one, he wasn't able to really work the wrestling. I feel like Ronaldo has a little bit of, I would say, the lights of both worlds, where he can mix it up on the feet, he can mix it up on the ground, and he also has really good submissions. I thought the Odi Osborne fight was a really good performance for him. It seems like he has a calling in this Mexico market, and I really like the money line at minus 160. I can definitely see that line closing at minus 180, minus 200 range by this weekend.
After you told me this was going to be one of the spots you were looking at, I really dug into it. I was already honestly thinking with just the angle of the Peruvian cardio and all that, I was going to get into this fight anyways. But I found a definite side in this one. Not only did I find a definite side, I'm looking at a prop as well too. And it even, once I gave my prop, I actually spit it in and said, hey, what do you think? And it gave me a prop you're going to like, because you love second round submissions. So we'll get into it. Ronaldo Rodriguez against Kevin Boras. Although Boras, everybody's looking at is the guy who's the decision machine, the guy that won't go away. And, he hasn't lost by KO. And the guy just sort of wears it on his face when he needs to, but also a pretty solid competitor. At the same time, Ronaldo Rodriguez, I think the grappling game is just going to be too big for him here. for Borjas, I mean. So, I mean, I think Rodriguez is just going to be able to get into that top game. And when he gets into that top game, he can set up submissions and land down some ground and pound as well, too. If you look at it, so his average fight time right now in the UFC is 7 minutes. So we're looking at, just at that, round and a half marker. Obviously, 7 wins by KO. A lot of people know him for that, but he has 5 wins by submission, talking about Rodriguez. He has a little bit of submission or decisions on his belt, but what do you want to look at really with Borjas, and what I even saw on tape too, is the control time he gives up. So when he does go down to the mat, he sort of gives up control time for a little while. So I looked at a couple things as far as amount of time potentially spent on the mat, and then also the submission threat. I just think that if you look at Rodriguez, I think he is a true submission threat in this fight. I think that Borjas, although might be able to push this fight to late and wear this fight over, for me, he's going to get taken down quite a bit. His takedown defense is not that solid. I think it's at 61%. That's in the UFC, but outside the UFC, he's been taken down as well too. I put all this criteria in, and I don't care if you guys don't want to buy into the whole AI thing. That's fine. I don't care. But the probability of outcomes is very interesting. But the submission is at 50%. Put in all the criteria based on past fight experience, opponents, wins and losses. Things we're looking at a 50% rate for submission, and then 35% rate that he wins by decision. So in that myself, I'm just thinking submission decision prop. I think that although he might be able to knock Borjas down, I think that the KO isn't a likely necessarily thing because he is Peruvian. I'll get into the whole idea of the cardio right now, but he is Peruvian. He does have the grit. But I don't know, there's plus money on the line there, but I just think that this fight is going to end by submission. I do think it could creep over a little bit. I'm going to see what the over 1.5 prop is, depending on what the market is saying here. But I mean, going through all of the numbers, this line actually, with numbers alone, should be a little bit wider. And I don't know if Borjas is one of those guys that's going to be able to wear damage late, like some of the other Peruvian cardio guys. So I'm going to say it now, and I'm going to say it for the last time. Mountain Peruvian cardio isn't a real thing because 90% of Peruvian fighters fight at sea level in Lima, just above sea level, at 168 meters above sea level. I looked it up. So it's no better. Doesn't mean that they can't push to a third round. I'm not saying that they don't maybe naturally have good cardio. I don't know. But it's not because of elevation. So stop building that into your fucking scripts, cappers. Do better. The reality of the fact is he's got grit, and I know he can push to late. But first, I'm just looking at the sub prop. I'm going to attack the sub decision. The decision will be safe, and it covers all bases for me. I think that Rodriguez wins this one by decision or submission.
You're kind of scaring me that you just like to fight the end by submission, but Ronaldo.
It's saying round 2. It's saying 40% chance it ends in round 2. Put it with everything I put in.
So I gotta make sure I get my notebook real quick because.
But still, look, once again, this is me taking numbers and stats
No,
that I've
the
applied.
notes that we did last week, dude. When I go back to my house in New Jersey, I'm gonna send you a picture of it.
A lot of info, good.
Dude,
that's what I want to be. I'm going to send you, when you send me this stuff, I want to send it to you so you can use it on your other shows because it's all valuable, right? There's just breakdowns of all their information, and it all is pushed right in front of your face. And for someone who's been doing capping for long enough, you just take that information and run with it, right? I'm probably going to sprinkle the second round submission, potentially third round submission prop. That'll be me, but I'm going to watch more tape on it to see if I see a lot more of an advantageous situation with the ground game and how Borjas goes to get up off the ground. Does he leave his neck out? Does he leave some, those are things I want to dig into more. But right now, I mean, that's what I would touch it with, submission decision. If we're looking at my round 1, I'm going to go back to ROI. I'm going to go back to, I guess maybe she's Mexican now, but she is Canadian too. And both of us aren't welcome in the United States, or at least I don't know if we are. But either way, I'm going to go with Lupi Godinez, going up against Julia Palastri. Really, the biggest overview of this fight is it's going to be wrestling with striking that's maybe not as good as Palastri's. Palastri might have the advantage on the feet with the range and the length. The knockout threat's there, and I think that's why the line's a little bit tighter, but it's just I don't see it. She's tough Mexican grit. She's going to dig in, and looking at all the numbers, it just really comes down to the wrestling, man. And we know that, if Lupi can get this, she can get 3 to 4 takedowns in this, and then utilize her she is underrated striking. And when you're worried about the threat of her takedown, it's also there to be had. Her boxing just starts to pick up, and it looks a lot better even sometimes than it is because of the threat of the takedown. Palastri, on the other hand, she doesn't have bad takedowns either. She actually has a pretty good entry as far as her takedowns. high percentage, but doesn't shoot as often. Obviously, more of a striker, more of a stand-up girl. She's going to try to play to the outside and sort of run a point game and sort of wait for a counter and or a moment to charge forward is how she does it. But I just think that she's going to get taken down. She's going to be had. I think that this is a level check fight as far as skill level, as far as like attributes in wrestling. I just think that Lupi is just going to be a way better wrestler, and that being the primary attribute in the fight, it's going to take over.
No, you're selling me. That's a really good matchup for her against Juliana Palastri. Now that I'm kind of like idealizing it,
it is pretty good. Like her takedown defense, 61%, not too bad. Her takedown accuracy is actually 81 or 80%, and Lupi's is actually 47%. She just shoots relentlessly when she does commit to it. On the feet, Palastri's going to out-volume her just slightly based on past. But when it comes down to it, man, I just think that the wrestling is going to pay dividends in this one. I think that we're going to go Lupi Godinez and the fight to start round 2. That'll probably give me around minus 150, I think, maybe minus 170, and I'll hit it. And really, this is a one for me. If no one wants to tail me on it, it's cool. This is a ROI play. This is a girl that I back time and time again. I'm going to go with it. We know what Jasmine did to Palastri. We're just going to roll with this.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I love that play.
Any specific thoughts, or you just love the play?
No. I really love the play. Like you're selling me. I mean, I have a little bit of a problem with Lupi Godinez because I feel like she kind of fights a little bit too close sometimes. But I'm just going to throw everything out. It's fight by fight matchup, and that's a really good matchup for her against Juliana Palastri.
I think this is obvious. She has to take this fight to the ground. She's going to be stupid if she doesn't. She's just giving Palastri her win condition with the reach, and she has solid striking. So I think she takes this fight down to the ground really easily. Yeah, man. I think Lupi, with the amount that she shoots every time she fights, is sort of ridiculous. I think she's over takedowns a fight at this point. So for me, Lupi Godinez all day long.
That leads into round 2 for me then.
Let's dig into round number 2.
Round 2. Fight.
Round 2 here for me. I know it's a Mexico card, and I know it's Brandon Moreno, but I really like Steve Erceg in this spot here at plus money. Maybe I'm a value boy junkie for this one, but dude, Steve Erceg at plus money here in this spot. I feel like this fight should be a pick 'em. Brandon Moreno looked really good in his last fight, but I feel like the cliff has definitely fallen just right behind. I feel like Steve Erceg could definitely bounce back in this one. Definitely got to tape this one a little bit more to kind of see how I want to fully attack this one. But as of right now, looking at this one early in the week, I think Steve Erceg's the side here at plus money. What are your thoughts and opinions here in the main event for UFC Mexico?
This is a tough one, man, because this is a case of guys that have very similar metrics, but then also you have a guy who, hasn't been at the level. It seems like it's a level check, but then also, I mean, Erceg now fighting for the title already, the way that he came up and honestly, his striking and the way he puts it all together, even combined with his grappling, he is, one of the top fighters in the division, and he's there for a reason. So although normally you'd say it's, strength of schedule, level check, all this shit, it's just, I don't think it is. I think that this is going to be possibly one of the fights of the night. I don't think that Moreno, who's been in some boring fights at points where he's sort of been able to sort of hide behind things and move when he wants to move, he's not going to be able to do that. Although he still has a little bit of a reach here. If I could be wrong in this, you might want to check it, but he has 2-inch reach advantage. Looking at these guys, they're pretty much almost virtually identical when it comes to striking volume. A little bit under 4 for Moreno, not even. He's pretty much at 4, and a little bit over for Erceg. So per minute, they're landing roughly around 4 strikes per minute. They're both pretty defensively sound, and at the same time, when it comes down to takedowns, it's washed, dude. It's absolutely all washed. So then you got to pretty much now take these stats, throw them out the fucking door, and really look at maybe what they've done in the past. Let's take a look at the past couple fights. How have they been wearing damage? What's been going on? If you look at the Albazi fight, we have Moreno coming off of a win. Obviously, he was on a 2-fight losing streak and pulls out a big one in that one. Erceg obviously coming off a loss, but that was for the belt. I mean, both guys, momentum is still there. So I don't think that loss for Erceg even, I think, was that short notice or put together fast? What was
it was kind of put together fast. They kind of needed just a body in there, and he was kind of like man up. I feel like
it's hard,
it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Brandon Royval matchup where Erceg has like the ability to kind of match him into grappling, but enough volume. empty volume to kind of win a decision here. I think Erceg could definitely get back on his horse and win this fight this weekend. I was honestly shocked by the price tag of Brandon Moreno at -188. If I had to price this fight, I would probably line Brandon Moreno as like a -125 favorite.
Yeah, I had him rated the -150 marker, but that's sort of where I was leaning it when I was looking at this and then trying to see where the stats were going to put it. It put it at -175, so it's right on line with where pretty much the marker is at right now. But yeah, man, it's extremely hard. This one, I don't know what to do with it. I think I'm gonna look at an over on it because I don't think either guy are gonna put each other out and just play it that way and maybe touch it live. Because I just don't know. Moreno sometimes looks like a fucking world beater and is in control of his fight and dominates. And the guy who's in there with him does not look like he's supposed to be in there with him. And then sometimes it's just not there for him. So I'm gonna pass on the main event as far as a full. Oh, you know what? I can't be a bitch. I gotta make a pick. I'll go head to head with you. Fuck it. Let's go. I'm gonna go to Mexico. I'm gonna say fuck. Yeah, let's do it. Mexico, let's go. Brandon Moreno. I'll go on the other side of it for that one. But it won't be one of my plays, but it's a pick for the main event.
I like it. I like it. Round 2.
Okay, I know you gotta. I know. So let's preface this. We're gonna try to make this as fast as possible and try to squish through these ones because our boy is down in San Antonio and he's down with the Pub Sports Radio team.
The comedy show, they hired a comedian that does like actual real comedy for like ESPN and shit like that. And when I left, I told my boss I was going to be back. He was like, "Motherfucker, you ain't coming back." I was like, "Oh shit, nah, I got to come back." So
now to dig into my spot for round number 2, I'm going to go against the guy. I'm going to go with a guy that I've been going against for the past little while, and that did not work for me when I went for old Brickhead in the last main event that we talked about. But we're going to go with Jamal Emmers in this one. Breaking down this fight, not only did I get to Emmers as a side, but I'm actually going to go with a prop on this one too because it's sort of ridiculous what it's offering up right now. So Miranda's just a liability in many, many cases. And although Emmers is somebody who actually even started the podcast, this was one of my first breakdowns when I ever did a podcast. It was Emmers against Sabatini, and what happened? Sabatini submitted his ass. And for me, he was sort of a fade from that point on. And the reality of the fact is he is a high-level fighter. His ground game still is pretty solid. He's made some poor choices in the cage, but you shouldn't live and die by one choice. And you just look at some of the stats here, they're staggering one way. Jamal Emmers, 28-0. We got Gabriel Moreno, 17-7-0. Both guys, 35 years old. Same height, roughly, pretty much the same height, off by an inch. Emmers has him by 3 inches in reach. I'm going to break down exactly where his KOs lie, where Miranda's just a liability, dude.
He's going to get knocked out. Yeah,
he's going to get knocked out. This is just what's going to happen. So I'm going to probably parlay Emmers up in something. It's maybe not in the Donttap parlay. We'll see. But if we look at these numbers here, man, the strikes landed per minute for Emmers is 5.3. For Miranda, it's 2.8. But Miranda's getting hit like 5 to 6 strikes per minute. On top of that, he's already a liability when he gets hit. So he's like, not only can he not defend himself, but he also can't handle it when he gets hit. Emmers' takedown defense is 90%. So the threat of the submission from Miranda, he's got to get him down to the ground. Sure, poor fight IQ can happen, and possibly this audio clip is going to be used against me later. But the reality of the fact is Emmers has been on a little bit of a run. And if you look at his numbers, Emmers has had 8 KOs in his career. 5 of them are in round 1, 3 of them in round 2. Okay, so we're looking at his stats based on his KOs. He gets to work early on guys. If guys show any kind of weathering when he hits them, he goes to work and lands elbows and knees and just pretty much finishes them off and or submits them on the ground. Now, if you look at Miranda, he can't get out of the first round. This dude, his average fights are all ending inside the first round. And now what they're looking at pretty much for the prop on this one, what I'm trying to lean into here is Jamal Emmers, round 1 and 2. Just to cover the submission.
I like the under too, Cal. I definitely think even if Miranda doesn't miraculously win, I think it would be a submission, like a fluky submission early. I kind of
actually I think there's some plus money on the under. If I'm not mistaken.
I definitely see where you're putting down though, because the bookies are going to want to say that Jamal Emmers is going to win this one by decision. But to be honest with you, stylistically speaking, I don't think Moreno is going to be able to take the strikes of Jamal Emmers early in this one.
Yeah, I mean, look at the guys he's KO'd. He KOs Dennis Bazooka. That was his most recent one. He's got Brett Ewing. He's got Kyle Machado. I mean, somebody who hasn't been touched. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting spot. I think that Emmers round 1 and 2. Somebody I didn't think I'd ever get back to. Somebody I didn't think I'd ever want to bet on again. But for me, it just sounds good. So, and the other stat I meant to tell you, your guy Rodriguez against your boy Borjas, he's actually attacking just under 2 subs and like solid submissions of Fight as well too. So that's something to take in note. Something I meant to tell you about. So I guess we will dig into round number 3.
Round 3. Fight.
So round number 3 this week, what we're going to do is we're going to build the parlay. I've already actually put it into 2-piece. You've already put it into 2-piece. Conveniently, we actually have a member of that 2-piece. It's the same. Joe Piper's going to demolish that taco eating. Sorry, man. I say taco eating because he literally ate tacos right before his fight and did a post on YouTube about it before the weigh-ins, and it didn't make weight. Yeah, I want to hear what your opinion is on this. I know that you had Joe Piper in a potential parlay. Talk about what your 2-piece was, and then obviously Piper might be your piece for the week.
Yeah, I'll start by preface this by saying a little bit biased. Joe Piper from South Jersey. I was talking to him after the Brady fight. I said, "You ready for next week?" He said, "You already know." But I think he's gonna whoop Kevin Gastelum's ass. But to be honest with you, I feel like with Joe Piper, we've seen a lot of his striking, but a lot of his grappling is kind of being underrated here. And I think he's going to be able to out-grapple Kevin Gastelum, kind of similar to how his teammate did. Somewhat similar career paths where one thing I said to TC about Sean Brady is they strategically planned out his career where he's catching these people a fight or two right before they fall off. And I feel like Joe's doing the same exact thing. He's getting like the same exact opponents that Sean went through. And I definitely think this is a great matchup for him against Kevin Gastelum. I think he definitely gets the job done. And then the second leg here, Rojas Jr. against Vince Morales. I think he's going to be able to get the takedowns, but Vince Morales is going to want to throw up submissions off of his back. There are going to be some sweaty moments in there, but I think Raul Rojas Jr. is mature enough nowadays to get this one done. There isn't a lot of big Mexican name fighters on the card. I mean, hence why Manuel Torres and Drew Dober's the co-main event. But I definitely think Raul Rojas Jr. is going to get the job done against Vince Morales. Vince Morales coming. I was pretty shocked to see his name on this card. Pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, I like the spot. I think I just think Piper, he's just going to beat him up really bad. I just don't think the Gastelum. He looks like he's already out. Like you were saying, like 1 or 2 fights before they were like he's already out. That dude's been out for a while. That guy hasn't fought well since like the Adesanya fight, and that was his fight of his career, and then possibly one of the better fights we've seen. But the reality is he's not there anymore. He doesn't seem like he cares, and until he shows me he does out of the blue, and maybe puts up a resurgence in his career, I'm gonna go with the. I sort of like that Piper by submission. That's not even a bad play at all because he does have some. He's aggressive with his submissions too. He might just beat him up on the ground. Gastelum turns, grabs his neck. I could see it. I'm going to bring a spot, and I'm now debating in my head. I'm going back and forth. Do I want to bring a spot that I haven't talked about yet, or do I want to just double down on somebody? Do I want to bring a spot that I haven't talked about yet? Or
I really like the Lupe Godinez fight. You sold me on that.
I mean, that was my parlay. So my parlay I've already locked in at like -150, -155, whatever the hell it is Joe Piper and Lupe Godinez. I just think that cashes.
I think that cashes too, bro. I really like that Lupe Godinez spot.
So it should be around that price point. It probably moved a little bit since then, but I don't think the lines have moved too drastically. So by the time this goes out, it might be a little bit chalkier, but I don't give a shit. Anything under -200, I'm with it.
Yeah, I think worst -160 will probably get up to. It's like, yeah, you could say whatever you want about Lupe Godinez in her catalogs of fights in the UFC that she fights somewhat close, but in this catalog of this particular matchup, I think this is a really good price tag.
Yeah, for sure. So we got the parlay, and that's going to likely sit around -150 to -175, we'll say, okay? We have all our plays detailed out. You say your 2 pieces, I'll say mine, and then let's just talk quickly on one final round, and we'll go into the scramble where we pick one fight this week where we want to sort of detail, or maybe just figure out if we see a spot in it or not, like we did last week, because there was so much value in that. So for you, just detail your spots, I'll detail mine, and then we'll get into the scramble and call it a day.
Yeah, round number 1's a go-to spot for me. I got to go with Lazy Boy Ronaldo Rodriguez. Round 2 for me was main event pick here. I'm going to go Steve Erceg as an underdog pick. And then round 3 for me was Joe Body Bags Piper from Philadelphia. And then second leg of the parlay for me was a little bit sketched out because you're selling me on the Lupe Godinez one, but Raul Rojas Jr.
And that's fine. So on your social media, you're going to see that's his own personal 2-leg that he has and might be in some of his packages as well too, unless you're on here listening right now. Of course, but we're gonna have our Donttap one as well too. My 2 spots, we got Lupe Godinez. I think she wins by decision, but the official bet's gonna be fight to start round 2 or maybe even round 3, depending on where the value is. But I think Lupe in round 2 works for me. Jamal Emmers, I like that one. Jamal Emmers to win in round 1 and 2. I may even make my own sort of sneaky parlay with that gentleman as well too. But I may even look at the under on that fight as well because it's just volatile. I think either under 2.5 or maybe fight doesn't go wherever the value lies on that as well too. And then as the parlay goes, we got Lupe Godinez and Joe Pyfer as a 2-piece at roughly -150 to -175. So if we're going to look at, and I hope that you were looking just now because I'm sure that you have one. I'll let you bring it to the table and we'll just hash it out. What would be your spot as far as the scramble play of the week? So this is the fight that we don't quite know where we lie necessarily, or maybe we do, but we want to try to see, we want to bounce it off each other and see where it's at. So what do we got?
Kind of like the Nathan Fletcher, Colin Laffern one last week. We really hashed that one out and got every angle possible out of that one. But this one, Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober. Drew Dober, kind of like a class of the division, and then Manuel Torres kind of fits the Mexico script. -110, pick them on each side. Which side do you think is the right side, man? I want to go with Manuel Torres. I feel like we could catch Drew Dober right off before the cliff, but I will also give Drew Dober credit of like Gene Silva and Renato Marcano aren't 2 bad losses at all. And if he did win this fight, would I be shocked? No, but man, it could be just one of those ones where it could just be a passing of the torch here where Drew Dober could just not be on his way out of the door, but just out of his way from these higher middle tier gatekeeper level fights to keep his ranking.
This one's going to be a little bit of a problem for Drew Dober, man. There's going to be a couple things that will come into play with this one. We talked about Manuel Torres last week and, him taking down Chris Duncan and doing what he did to him. He does have wrestling, and actually his entries are pretty decent. His wrestling's pretty solid, and he uses his striking to set up his wrestling, right? So you're worried about his striking. His volume is high. That's going to be a problem. He is damage, volume. He's got the youth on his side. Dober hasn't been wearing fights, well lately. And don't get me wrong, we could go heavy on Manuel Torres, thinking Torres is the side on this, and then Dober just comes out and just catches him, right? Because Dober does have that power in his hands, and he does have that chin, or does he? He's had this granite chin his whole career, and it hasn't been wearing nice lately. It hasn't been, that pretty face has not been looking so pretty.
Yeah,
He's getting beaten up. I mean, cut open stoppage, you can't do anything about that. But yeah, I don't know. I think this could be a passing of the torch. I think it's a good way to, you talked about Kevin Holland last week in the Man in the Mirror fight, and then we got copyright infringement on that one because I did too much of Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror song on it. But yeah, that fight, the way that you ran the narrative on it, it seems like could sort of be it here. It feels like it's a passing of the torch. I'll bet on the volume. I'll bet on the damage. I'll bet on the wrestling edge. And the fact that Drew Dober cannot stop a takedown to save his fucking life, you just found a spot for me. So I'm going to go with Manuel Torres in this. I actually looked at this fight and was like, like the moment you mentioned that, I was like, and you know what? Talking about it already, I think that's where we go with it. But what's like, where do you, like, can you see something for Dober in this one? Or do you think that, honestly,
I really like Manuel Torres. Is just more of it's March Madness time. I don't think I want to be thinking I'm better than the fucking odds makers and, sticking my shit out there and fucking thinking my shit's hot shit. Like, no, dude. Because it's usually the takes that we talk about early in the week are usually the best ones.
Yeah, I think we found a side on that one. Really, there's the other one I was going to say is I think that Charas has his way with Vergara. We don't have to get into breaking it down hard, but I just think that's going to be one that, I'm probably going to touch up that in some way or another. Yeah, it likely goes to decision. It could be Charas by decision that I play, but he's just gritty. And although the line's a little wide on it, I just
the last one I'll say, Cal, is stay away from the David Martinez versus Simon Oliveira one. I kind of
not touching that shit.
I like Simon. I think he's live at plus 300, bro. That person.
I'm going to be playing that one live. That's the only way I'm touching it. I'm going to watch how it goes, and if there's any value, I'm jumping.
Yeah, that price tag
Good
was a
point.
little bit off when I saw that one. Like if I had the price tag, I would probably put it at like 225, 250.
All right, you know what? We're just gonna do this. For Billy Briz of Pub Sports Radio, this man's got to get out. He's in San Antonio, and these guys work hard. You know, they're doing their day jobs, or they're going to school, they're doing capping, they're doing all of these things all at once. So it's time to go out and have some fun in San Antonio. I want you to have fun down in the United States, my brother, because you know we are brothers. You know, Canada, United States. We should.
No, you're my favorite Canadian ever.
Oh, okay. There we go. Favorite Canadian. I'll take that shit.
Favorite
All right, brother.
Canadian.
For Billy Briz of Pub Sports Radio, I'm Cal McGregor. Tune into the Donttap podcast.
Tune into the Donttap podcast.
Donttap.
Podcast.
You think the process, the tape, the study, the narrative, the script.
A little bit of a downfall from a champ.
When we're looking at value on the lines,
That definitely, I think, in some of the handicappers I talked to, has influenced the gambling line.
Appreciate that. I'm sorry what I'm gonna have to do to you in this little matchup we got.
Thank
going
you.
on, but-
I was gonna say, okay, enough niceties. Let's dig in.
He can pressure in the first, he can pressure in the second, and pressure in the third.
I'm Gentleman Josh Hill. I'm Aaron Jeffrey. I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Rocky Stop.
Tune into the Donttap
Donttap.
podcast. Podcast.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.